today's market and finding clients. Nick's going to share with us his best practices when it comes to marketing and actually converting some new clients in today's environment. Really sharing what's working with him and what's not working with him. And Mike Lewicki. Mike will get us started, and he's going to be talking about some of the issues that we're having with some of the COVID forms, the COVID clauses, some of the legal issues that we may be all asking ourselves, as well as what's happening in the tenancy world with both landlords, tenants in the residential and the commercial world. Now, before we get started, there is just a disclaimer that I'd like to read to you. Okay, the unique circumstances that we are living in means this is unprecedented legal territory. And in this webinar, there will be a discussion about legal issues that have been encountered during this pandemic. Anything that is said during the presentation that might be interpreted as legal advice should not be relied on, and each participant should obtain their own independent legal advice. OREB, the panelist, and the YPN committee take no responsibility for any action, losses, or damages that result from any action taken by participants as a result of this discussion. So, with all that fun behind us, I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to take us the next 10 or 15 minutes. Mike, it's all yours.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Again, Nick and Gabe. Gabe, never met you before in person, heard about you, good things. Nick, it's finally good to see your face. It's been a couple years since we did a deal, so good to see your face. So again, we're going to talk about, again, we've all seen on social media, as everybody talks about how there is, you talk to 5 realtors, you're going to get 15 opinions on everything. So we're going to talk about today is really what the known facts are, what we do know, and the parties to talk to. So without further ado, I will bring up my screen share here. I promise it's only 69 slides. It'll be quick. So just give me a moment here.
It says that he's screen sharing. It's black right now, but
okay.
He is screen sharing.
There we go. Okay.
Is it good now?
Yep.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Glad you can see the amazing graphics. Okay, so today we're going to talk about obviously navigating the aftermath in the current scenario. So to be honest, nobody knows what's going on. The last time something like this was similar was 1918. Before that, it was the Black Plague. And we obviously don't have any great details, and real estate wasn't as advanced as it was today. So everyone's kind of going forward and kind of deciding what makes sense for their business and their clients. So the first thing we're going to look at is topics for discussion. We're going to cover 4 briefly: residential leasing, landlords and tenants. It's 2 sides, one coin. Often people look at it as adversarial, and you need to look at it that it's actually the 2 of them together need to come and create that relationship. Residential real estate, who does what do we do? There's social media, chat rooms, conference calls, Zoom, webinars. Everyone keeps asking about, is it OREA, is it OREB, is it RICO, is it CREA, whose responsibility is it? And we're going to touch briefly on what those roles are and where our role is and our responsibility as independent contractors. Commercial real estate. I mean, you can go to the Sun or the Citizen or CTV every day and hear about, a horrible landlord or a tenant that can't pay or a tenant that refuses to pay. And there's a story behind that and why things are happening. And the future of real estate, essentially the next 6+ months, 12, 18 months, 5 years from now, what that's going to look like, how it's going to change our business, right? So we'll kind of talk briefly about that. So the first thing we'll get into is the fun one that everybody enjoys, which is residential leasing. So as everybody knows, under REBA 2002, we're all supposed to be responsible to be aware of the different acts that we work within or work with as practicing real estate. What many agents don't realize is that they need to understand the Resident Attendee Act enough to tell their clients when to speak to a paralegal or a lawyer, or someone who's well-versed in it, who owns property management involved in that process. A small little note is, I see a lot of social media posts is, well, my landlord gave them a notice and they're not moving out. Well, we're all about the specific language from real estate. A notice is a notice. It's not a requirement. And the way the RTA is set up is that if a landlord gives a notice, the tenant has the right to address that. And right now, as we all know, the LTB, the Landlord Tenant Board, is shuttered. It's suspended, which means that the typical remedies a landlord would have to engage a realtor or other services with showings and all those remedies in that, and for lack of payment, are suspended. So we don't know what's going to happen, but it's always recommended is that you don't provide the advice. You know, there is great paralegals out there. For those of you who are looking for a landlord-specific lawyer, there's a great firm here in Toronto that does a lot of that. For tenant representation, a lot of great opportunities out there as well. The key is to not give advice and to not get involved with a landlord's emotional reaction to it. Tenants, how do you work with them? Even pre-COVID, you know, you have the legal right with your landlord to, you know, give 24 hours notice, 7 days a week, 8 to 8. But if you work with the tenant and come to an arrangement, it's a lot easier. No different with COVID. Myself and my team personally, we've taken the practice. We are not showing properties that are tenanted, and we are not taking active listings for residential that have tenants in them. We're insisting our landlords have them vacant, and that within a few days they get cleaned, and then we start the process to get them to market. 2 reasons. One, by ensuring the tenant's out, you're not going into that gray area where they're not moving and they're not sure. And it also makes sure that they feel safe, right? We want to make sure we control the brand and the conversation with the landlord and potential tenants. And landlords, yes, they have rights, but you have to look at them in a common sense way. They can't just start putting pressure on tenants or the field of tenancy without expecting some pushback right now. You know, we got to make sure that we are not being heavy-handed. So we deal actually directly with the tenant. So if there's a concern as we're getting ready, we ask the landlord to let us talk to the tenants directly and work with them. Pre-COVID, they would call our cells directly, we'd work with them, and it always worked out. Was it perfect? No, but we tended to get more interaction from the tenants and more buy-in. The next topic we'll touch base on really is commercial real estate. So commercial real estate, what's really interesting is pandemic planning. Most commercial leases address when, say, a building is unsafe to go in, or say there's construction nearby and you can't access your property. But per pandemics, only thing I've seen recently was a commercial insurance policy that specifically said you're denied insurance for a pandemic. Wimbledon, on the other hand, had the foresight just around SARS in 2003 to spend about $1.9 million US a year since 2003 for pandemic insurance. Now, obviously their accountants weren't happy about it. They kept getting told to cancel it. Long story short, they put a claim in. Their payout for the pandemic insurance they have is 142 million US. Now, hindsight's 2020. The person that signed that contract probably just got a promotion. If it didn't pan out, I'm sure it's going to cost somebody a job. So going forward, when we're looking at commercial leasing, we got to look at what it's going to look like in 3, 5, 10, 15 years, right? The clauses now will be heavy-handed. They'll be strongly worded. They'll become lax as we go over time. Everybody remembers when we came up with the e-signature clause in 2015, it was its own schedule by itself. Now, it's what, 2 or 3 lines in a paragraph. Retail leasing, not going to go too far down that rabbit hole. The interesting thing is it creates an opportunity for some landlords to engage office tenants. So people who wanted, Main Street, they might not want to have a restaurant in there, but they might be more open to taking an office leasing. And for the office leasing discussion, work from home opportunity. Instead of needing 6,000 to 10,000 square feet, maybe they're only going to need 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, and they're going to job share the space. Maybe only if the accounting department comes in 3 days a week, and then the CFO comes in 2 days a week, or vice versa. Purchasing, something back in the 80s, 90s, and before that, instead of just traditional financing, you're going to be seeing people look at syndicates, people looking at private financing, private lenders, leverage, pooling money together. So there's going to be greater opportunity and more sharing is what we think might happen there. And the landlords, you've got your REITs, you've got your mom and pops, your family trusts and legacies. Frankly, they're going to have to start looking at working with their tenants in the long term. And if they want to re-sign them, there's going to be opportunities on both sides. The key thing with commercial real estate too, and I was talking with somebody yesterday, is we obviously all know you can look up RICO when an agent's obviously had a concern and there's been a disciplinary decision. if you want to look at where a lot of the commercial real estate concerns go, look at the court cases. A lot of times they look for remedies in the courts. So be very careful what you're saying to people about commercial leasing, commercial purchasing, and always talk with a lawyer. Before anything, always talk with a lawyer. And by the way, I do apologize. I know I do go fast, and I've had already about 4 pots of coffee today. So the next one I want to talk about really is the COVID-19 and beyond, technology. So this is something we've all talked about for years. Your home offices, plus RICO requirements and privacy, and we'll talk about privacy when we get to forms and stuff down the road. But if you think about it, when you're working at home, if you're in a condo and you share that with a spouse or a partner or a roommate, is your workspace secure? Can you guarantee your workspace is secure enough that, God forbid, there was an issue and somebody raised it, you have a defensible position? We have client files, we have finance, we have FinTrack forms. If you print things off, if you keep soft copies, your device is secure. Those are all things to talk about with either your brokerage, independent counsel, independent IT people, but look into it. I know my peers are going to talk about some lead gen. Something interesting is, you know, a lot of people door knock, do flyers. Are you more web focused? Cold calling, is that still an opportunity? You need to look at where you're looking and getting your business. And to be honest, we can't be tone deaf. We got to be very careful with it, because you're going to drive clients into other people's business, and you're going to get yourself in the media the wrong way. And once you get in the media the wrong way, it just goes viral, and it's not worth it. Client engagement, and I've had this talk with a few of my peers over the years in other industries. Less in person, people say it's less personal. I'm sure many of you have realized that when you get interested leads, is that you're not running around a lot. You're spending more time qualifying them. So when you're going out there, you're spending more time actually engaging people and having more one-on-ones instead of just quantity. Other one is networking. So I myself, a lot of what I do for my lead gen in business is I belong to a number of different groups and committees and associations, and we're refiguring that out. We're figuring out what we're going to do for our seminars and other things like that. So we need to figure out where we're going to change this business. And somebody's always said that, you know, is this going to be the death of real estate? Are we going to see difference? People said the same thing when the internet came out, right? I know many of my peers in this city and across Canada and the States that have fantastically large teams and brokerages that are flourishing, and they've used it to their advantage. So there is ways when we come out of this to streamline your business. And that goes to the next one, lead by revenue. We always hear it. I mean, everybody pitches realtors. The line is always just one sale. It'll pay for itself. Well, frankly, if you're looking at your books now, like, do you have the reserve funds for 3, 6, 12, 18 months? And if you don't, you're a CEO. I mean, yes, you're an independent contractor by CRA and all that fun stuff, but you're your own CEO. You're the CFO. You're the chief marketing officer. You have the right to look at where your expenses are, your line items, and say, does this make sense? Do I need to pay for bus ads? You know, should I reinvest in technology? Is there something else my clients want that I'm not asking? So now's a perfect time to look back and reassess where your expenses are. I mean, one perfect example is, how many of you are getting those lovely emails about, in this time of COVID, we're all together? I didn't realize how many mailing lists I was on. And I looked at all my line items, how many things I was paying for marketing that I don't need. So thank you to them for getting the mass emails, because they just canceled their service. So those are really the things that I've been focusing on with myself and my team and my peers. And I think going forward, we don't know where it is. But one last thing I want to talk about as well with the networking and technology is, we need to be hyper aware of what we post on social media. Once it's out there, it's out there. And I said this to my parents. I said, I appreciate you think you're only posting for the family, but it's not. The moment it goes on the web, somebody can screenshot it and put it out there. Be cautious on your opinion. Be cautious what you're saying out there, because it can backfire, and it's very hard to backstep. Something else I was talking to somebody else with the other day, they mentioned, so the law societies had their calls with their lawyers, and they said they should be approaching real estate right now with a dull blade. And it was, be reasonable in these unreasonable times, because when we come out of this and the light is put more on our actions, it will be looked upon favorably if we were more understanding with each other in the process. So that's it. That's the gist of what I got.
Mike, can you share any just a little more on the forms and the clauses and your experience with what's happening up there?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the forms and the clause, that goes back to, you ask 5 realtors, you get 15 opinions, right? So people have also asked about, why isn't OREA or OREB putting out forms? Well, OREB's a trade organization that allows us access to buy, sell, invest in real estate on behalf of our clients under agency. Their job is not to go out there and put out forms. They work with the broker owners, broker managers, provide consistency. And then each brokerage is responsible to work with their agents, whatever capacity, to what makes sense for them under privacy, under agency, and under REBA 2002. We all have different COVID forms out there from every brokerage. Some have them, some don't. They do have to follow privacy guidelines. If you find that a peer doesn't have what you feel it should have in it, call them. Just call them. I understand people want to post it online, but that's not conducive to having the right conversation. People look to us for guidance, and it's our responsibility to take that and lead with it. I'll be honest, I had one a couple of weeks ago. An agent was like, Mike, I didn't like your form. We talked about it, and it was an understanding of the communication. And I went back to my management, and they explained it to me in a way that I wasn't seeing it. Guess what? Right. Showing happened. Everybody's happy, and we didn't have to post it on Facebook.
Wonderful. So the bottom line really is follow your broker's advice on this. At least if something is done wrong, you've got your broker to fall back on and to support you with however support you need.
Right. And the last thing is I wanted to briefly mention is I see a lot of posts, people go, well, what's RICO doing? RICO's doing their job. RICO was created to protect the consumer. Protect the consumer. Unless you're buying a house, I mean, Nick, if I'm going to buy a house with you or Gabe, then RICO protects me as a consumer. But their role is not to give guidance to realtors. That's REBA 2002 in your brokers. So now's a great time for those of you who are bored. I personally love reading REBA 2002. It's a great read. You got lots of time now. So
thanks, Mike.
No problem.
Thanks. We'll get back to you when we're getting into our general question and answer. And I want to shift gears a little bit now and talk about generating business. What's working out there? What's not working out there? How is today's marketing a little different than it was 90, 120 days ago? So Nick, why don't you take over from here?
Sure. Thank you very much by the way, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to screen share as well. Let's see how that goes. All right. Can you all go see that? It says marketing for Ottawa Realtors in 2020.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right. So this, if anybody finds anything useful in here, you do not need to save it. I will drop a link to this presentation in the chat afterwards. And I've set a timer for myself, so I will try not to go over, but I really, really enjoy marketing. Over a few years of being a realtor, it's actually become one of my favorite parts of the job and not one of the things I would have thought when I started. So I will try and talk about it in a practical way that's not being too much of a nerd. But anyways, so the key things I want to talk about that have become really clear under coronavirus is, number one, get really clear on who you are and who you're talking to. Use a hub and spoke model for your marketing, because you don't have a lot of time to get it out there, where a lot of us are working at home with kids, or our schedules are vastly different with with spouses at home, parents at home, whatever, and we just don't have as many hours in the day. And then your marketing, just remember, whatever you're doing supports the basics that you're doing. It doesn't replace them, especially when we're talking about things like online marketing. So the first part is just talking about being clear on what you're all about. So if you've read anything by Marty Neumeyer, I really like him. So clarity. So there are a couple of documents that my team and I use every time we are setting up a marketing piece. And the first one is just a visual branding guide. So this is something that a company called 916 here in Ottawa put out for us. They built it with a lot of questioning of me and what I was about. And it's a very quick visual guide for what I am about and my team. So the tagline that I use is Ottawa's People First Realtor, right? So, and I've got a logo that uses these colors above. It uses these kind of fonts. It informs every kind of visual language that goes out. So I want to come across as somebody who puts my clients first, who is a teacher, and who is generous with my time and knowledge. So that's what all has to be encapsulated in everything that I go out. And so if there's anything that I'm thinking of putting out that doesn't fit that, it doesn't make it through that filter. So the second bit is we use a similar approach when talking about clients. We actually have in the wiki that my team and I have created to use together, we have a client avatar. Her name is Elise. She's based on a real person. She's a client of mine who lives out in Orleans. And she has a husband, or the guy's name is Steve, but he's not terribly important because she's the decision maker. So Elise is this client avatar that we use, and everything that we send out, we're trying to say, what would Elise think about it? When we were writing a marketing piece, sending out a newsletter, creating a video, creating a podcast, something like that, we're saying, is this useful to Elise? She's 32 years old. She works for the government. Her husband is a paramedic, and they have a young child. And this just fits so many of my clients, and it means that I can create marketing that's meaningful for people. So if you're thinking what your marketing is, think about who your client avatars are. Who are one or two types of people that you communicate with a lot, and figure out a way that you can communicate with them directly. And then finally, in the clarity sort of sphere here, I'm trying to remind myself in all of my marketing that I'm the guide and not the hero. So my marketing should not be rah, Nick is really good at selling your home for top dollar. It's going to be, you are going to sell your home for top dollar, and I'm going to help get you there. I'm going to give you the tools that will help get you there. That comes from Donald Miller's book, Creating a Story Brand, and it's one that I really recommend.
And before we go a little further, can you just give us an idea of what you mean by the spokes and hub?
Spokes and hub, I'll get down to that.
Wonderful.
That's the next bit. So we talked about what that means in practice, and it just goes through those three filters. So the first thing I ask is, would Nick Fundytus, the realtor, say this when I'm putting out a marketing? And sometimes that's different than from Nick Fundytus, the personal opinion, especially in COVID-19. That's important. The second filter that any marketing piece I send out has to be, would this be something that Elise cares about? And then the third question is, when I step back and I say, have I placed Elise at the center of the story that I've created? Have I given her suitable motivation as the hero of her own story, and placed myself as the guide to help her? So to give you an idea of something during COVID-19, we set out a marketing piece that showed how, and it was an April Fool's joke. It was something that we had created, my team and I had created before the lockdown all sort of happened. And it was this marketing piece to say, hey, we're going to do this brand new service where we come over and we look after your kids, because we know that a lot of our clients have kids, and we're going to make things easy for you. We're just going to come tuck them in and read a bedtime story. And that's just one more kind of people-focused thing that we do. During COVID-19, we had to think, okay, how does our marketing need to change, and how does it pass through those filters in the new reality? So what's appropriate for my brand to say right now? And Mike was really hit the nail on the head. He said, people are looking at what you are putting out for advertising, and it can either help you later by saying you had a good attitude and a good responsible approach to how you're going to deal with things under the pandemic, or you can look kind of opportunistic, and you can look like we're a little bit tone deaf, and that's going to bite you, I think. The second question we had to ask was, how does Elise feel about the world situation? My reactions to coronavirus, and how safe or unsafe, or how comfortable or how cautious I am about how I do my showings, doesn't matter if Elise is feeling different than I am. So I thought about this avatar, and this person, and I thought, Elise is probably feeling anxious about coronavirus, because I know that she still had an income, but her husband was underemployed. She had a new baby at home, and she has elderly parents that she's worried about. Real estate is not the most important thing on her mind. And therefore, when I'm marketing, real estate should not be the most important thing that I'm sending out to her. So, and then our message, the messaging that we sent out to all our clients was not real estate centric. So instead, we spent time and energy gathering resources. And my marketing admin, Steph, is probably somewhere on the call today. And she did a fantastic job of just gathering resources and making sure that that was front and center on our website, front and center on the social media that we put out, just saying, hey, here are, aside from, all those emails that you get say, hey, here's what we're doing during COVID-19. We didn't do that so much. We just said, we would actually call around and say, what can we do to help? And then said, we also have put together these resources. And the resources were ones that would be useful to Annalise. So, make sense? Super. The second part is using a hub and spoke model. So this is what we're talking about. At the center of all my communications with clients is my website. So nickfundytus.ca. It's where I sell my team. It's where I educate my clients. And it's where I provide ongoing value and community through events. It's also the only place on the internet. It's the only kind of marketing that I 100% control. I don't control the rules or the algorithms that change on Facebook. I could have a print marketing company that goes out of business. I could, any number of things. You could have letter drops could become way more expensive and become prohibitively expensive. So the website is the only piece of marketing real estate that I can 100% control. So I make sure that everything I create drives back to that. So whether it's a newsletter, podcast, YouTube video, goes back to that. And then finally, I don't try and be everywhere. I go back to that clarity message and I say, where is Elise looking? And I advertise on those platforms. And that's what the hub is. So the hub is your website, and then the spoke is everything that's out there that leads back to it. So what does that look like under COVID-19? Well, my team and I have ramped up giveaway contests is one way that we've done it. And we've done this because we want to support local businesses. So my brand is about the community that we work with. It is about serving others. And we make sure that we are selecting businesses that we like, that we ourselves patronize, and that are ones that are meaningful to our clients. So we host a giveaway link on our website, and we advertise through our print and email and our paid social posts. So we're spending money to advertise somebody else's business. But here's what I like about it. So number one, it's an email collection system for us. So it builds our reach so that we can then remarket to through emails. It's easy to create a succinct, compelling message that drives traffic back to the site, and we've shown lots of growth in that. I show, my Elise that I'm active, that I'm genuine, and I'm supporting causes and businesses that she cares about. And I create stronger partnerships with businesses that I care about. So I can do a giveaway that benefits a charity that I care about, or benefits a professional that I care about. Oh, I've already hit my 10 minutes, so I'm going to keep this going quick. And it gives me an expanded audience by borrowing the audience of those businesses, because they often cross-promote us on social when we run a giveaway for them. And I lend a little bit of my voice to them as well. And then I feel good because I'm supporting business that I care about, and I'm working during this time in a way that I feel good about. And the last bit is just do my marketing in a way that supports the basics and doesn't replace it. So I'm hoping that one of my favorite colleagues, Todd McLaughlin, is on here today. And he and I were talking a long time ago about the difference between, if you know him, Brian Buffini's coaching method and Chris Leader, who he likes both. So he said that Brian Buffini's coaching is like having a garden and you're tending it. And then the garden is your clients. And you're making them grow healthy, and then you're slowly harvesting the seeds of referrals and business out of that. It's a little bit slower than what Chris Leader's approach is, which is like tilling new ground. So it's finding seeds to plant and tilling them in this new ground. But it's not always as reliable, but you grow faster. He says by doing both, you rapidly grow a healthy garden. So if I can only do one approach, and when I only have time to do one approach, it's very much Brian Buffini. So it's calls to people that I care about, it's notes, and it's pop buys. So it's reinvesting back to the people that I already care about, who know me and like me and trust me. It makes me feel happy about the way I work, and it's foolproof. The referrals are guaranteed if you are consistent with that system. There are never any poor harvests except when I forget to tend the garden, and I have the kind of clients that I want, and they introduce me to other people who are just like them. So my marketing is kind of a way of tending my garden and prepping the soil for the right kind of clients. So if I'm going to choose what to do first and what to do second, and I'm sorry, I harp on Elise, and you probably think I'm in love with this person, but I kind of am. Like, this is the kind of person I love working with. All of my marketing focuses on getting more Elises to work with me. So first, I tend my garden. I call her consistently. I write notes of gratitude and congratulations. So if I find out that something important has happened in Elise's life, it's a new baby, or even if it's something that's not good, I've learned some clients have lost family members. I have clients that their baby had to go live with their parents because both of them are working on the front lines, like things like that. And I make sure that I'm writing a note to tell them I'm thinking of them. And I plan events that I know that she and I will both like doing. And I ask for referrals. So that's the basics. Then to grow that, I'm creating content that I know she will like, and then share it out with the world. So I don't have to spend extra time creating content for new leads. I can create stuff that both serves my existing clients and serves people who are like them. I serve causes that resonate with both me and my clients. And then I post testimonials from clients like her in places that I know she would find them. During COVID-19, the basics they're a little bit expanded because they're things that I do to kind of keep normalcy as well as market. So I keep a routine personally. So like I'm up at 5 every morning doing exercising and journaling and reading and all that stuff, and just kind of keeps a nice routine. I have a very strict schedule with my wife and my kids and I, and that's how we kind of make things feel normal, and you're not getting too freaked out about how weird the world is right now. I check in with my team and see what they need, both professionally and personally. So I have a marketing admin, I have a buyer agent, Steph and Katie. And there's been some weeks where the most important things on their mind are not real estate related. It's just, some anxiety about how the world works, or, family and things like that we need to talk about. And one of the most rewarding things that we've had during this time is actually just a team social where we got on Zoom one night and we had a bottle of wine, or bottles of wine, at our different places. Every day I try and call 5 clients and just see how they're doing. I'm not asking them whether they need to move. If they need to move, absolutely, they will tell me. And there have been an amazing amount of referrals coming in during this time, more than I expected. And I think it's related to that approach. I learned something about if I learn something about my clients, I follow up with a note or some other appreciative way or appropriate way. And then I update my active clients at least once weekly with whether they are looking at houses or they're just holding tight, just to make sure that they know I'm staying with them, I'm on top of their searches, and I'm on top of the market. So I'm showing expertise. And I do that either with a phone call weekly or a BombBomb video update where I can share my screen. And if anybody's not using BombBomb yet, you should, or some sort of video communication. It's a fantastic tool. And then once that's done, I support those with using video to duplicate myself to my clients, potential clients, marketing using partnerships like those giveaways to extend my reach. I revisit my systems to improve my client experience. And then I read and listen to thought leaders. I really love that word, by the way. I've been telling my wife I'm a thought leader ever since I got signed up for this thing and using it to win arguments. And then give me new ideas and inspiration. Because I have the benefit of having a little bit different schedule than I would normally have in May, it lets me read a little bit more. So I'm going to take advantage of that. I'm not reading Reba 2002, but I do have a lot of books that I like. Yeah. And then, like I said, I'll drop this link in here. I've used more than my time, so thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to any questions, but if you want this resource, I'll just drop it in the chat.
Great, thanks, Nick. That was informative. Just a quick question before we move on is, you mentioned you found that your referral business is, has picked up a little bit, or at least people talking to you about friends, family members that they have. What about your overall web traffic? I mean, Facebook says that, eyeballs on the web these days is up about 40%. Are you finding that you're getting even more traffic in this environment?
So of the things that I can measure, I'll say anecdotally, it's been like I've just been getting good referrals and consistent referrals that I've been really pleased about. Like it has not dropped off in that regard. But in terms of stuff I can measure, I say, so any paid Facebook ads, I'm getting a much lower cost per click these days, just more people clicking through. I ran contests before coronavirus, but we're getting a lot more people enter them, and a lot more new people, and a lot more people sharing them, and people that are coming in through those channels. There's a couple forums on the internet where I will give advice and without sort of marketing myself, but I do find that I'm getting sort of self-referrals that way of people who have looked up my answers and then said, hey, I like the way you answer those questions, and they'll come looking for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, remember that you can drop any questions you have into the Q&A, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if you're using an iPad on the top of your Zoom screen. And one thing I will mention that, of course, even though we're in COVID and it's a little different market, provincial standards of advertising and marketing still apply. So make sure you're adhering to all that. We're going to move on now to Gabe de Varennes. Gabe's going to just kind of walk us through his environment, what's happening out there, and working with buyers and sellers, when you're doing your work, how you've decided to do that, and then share some of the stats that you love to share and have a good grasp on.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for putting this on. Thanks for inviting me. Thank you to the Ottawa Real Estate Board, Curtis, Gina, who I met for a couple seconds on Zoom before. I think this is great. One of the things I've realized in like the 10 weeks, 12 weeks of being in the pandemic is that I miss my peers. I miss my colleagues. I miss chatting with agents, going through the process of a real estate transaction.
We miss you too. Yep.
Nice. Thanks, Nick. Nick and I actually kind of share an office or a wall. We're in the same hallway. So I don't see you as much as or I don't see you now as much as I did before, but
you're my first office roommate.
That's it. That's true. Yeah. I have babysat your kids. And I will just speak anecdotally. So my name is Gabriel de Varennes. I've been in real estate for 7 years. People call me Gab. Similar to kind of Nick's approach, I have a similar philosophy to business. I will speak to anecdotally what I've been up to most specifically in the last week or two. So business has picked up for me. I think as people are being a bit more comfortable with like, oh my gosh, it's safe to go outside, and you can businesses are starting to open a little bit. People are starting to kind of creep around and figure out what life looks like, outside of their Zoom calls in their apartments, kind of, isolating a home basically. And I've personally been really busy. Before this call, I looked at my calendar. I have shown 14 properties to 10 different clients in the last 7 days. I've signed disclosure forms for every single one of them. I have a great office manager, Quinn, who helps me out with that. And I've met people in public in 3D, and just kind of figuring out what's going on and how people are responding. People are nervous. I was at a property and I was standing outside. There were people coming out, and people are like, curled up and like really anxious, And at the same time, my clients that I'm working with now called me 5 days ago and said, Gab, we've been self-isolating for 10 weeks. We have realized that we're not from Ottawa. We spent 12, 13 years here chasing our careers, but our family's from Toronto. My parents are getting old, and I've decided I want to move. And I've never, in the last, I would say 10 weeks, this is in the last week or two, been the most decisive I have seen my clients in terms of their conviction to wanting to move. Either older senior couple who want to move closer to the kids, family wanting more space. I have 2 young boys, whatever it is. I want a bigger detached home instead of a townhouse, or hey, me and my girlfriend are renting an apartment downtown. We're about to kill each other, but we're still together, and we'd like to commit to a 25-year mortgage. The clients that I've been working with for the last few days, they're frontline professionals. They're involved in the process of putting ventilators down people's throats on their day-to-day job. And when my client says, Gab, I'm going to work, I'll be back, I'll see you tomorrow, I'm like, okay. And I'm like, he's probably like and I've gone through his house. I've seen his station outside of his house where he leaves his shoes. He's got, his desanitizing process at work that he told me about. He comes home, takes his shoes outside, Purell, the whole works, goes in the shower, goes through the garage. And he has 4 kids under 7, twins that are 2 years old, and wants to sell his house. And his number one concern is not, hey, Gab, what's it worth-ish? I mean, that's obviously important, but it's not the number one concern. It's not what you charge. It's, can we do this in a safe way? And after kind of witnessing that whole process, I was like, all right, well, if my client can do it and goes to work every day, I can do it too. So I was like, all right, I'm buying PPE. I'm buying gloves, masks, and hand sanitizer, and I will make it available, and I will have it outside of the house now that it's beautiful weather outside, on a table with instructions for people to use, and that includes agents, buyers, whoever wants them. I will tell my clients to leave the doors open, the lights on. I'll ask kindly. Maybe I thought about the idea of asking people to send me a selfie, but I think that's kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. I do trust my colleagues. And I bring a box. I brought it here. It's a little crate. Inside, I have a box of gloves. I basically first sanitize my hands, pump, pump, pump. Oops, sorry. And then I take 2 gloves out. I do it on myself. And then I put it on the hood of my car. And I say, hey guys, I've been thinking, I went to see 3 houses this weekend. Actually, all of them were the same house because there's no inventory, but with different clients. And there was 47 showings booked. And nobody was living there, so that's awesome. But at the same time, everyone's kind of got their own different way of going about it. So I walked in 3 times in a house that's been 47 showings booked. So I would assume buyer's agent, maybe 1 or 2 other people. So if we call it on average 2 people, that's 100 people that have walked through this 1,800, 2,000 square foot home in the last 2 days. And I'm like, okay, at the same time, like, I'm 28, 29 years old. I'm probably asymptomatic, I would guess. I'm probably going to get it at some point in time. And I would hate 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, God forbid anything happens, but to look back and say, fuck, I should have done more, So now I just literally went to a janitorial supply store on Surville. It's next to the Value Village. You can call them. You can set up a delivery time. I asked for 10 boxes of masks and gloves. These, I think they have 100 pairs. Okay, they're $9.99 each. I have a box of masks. They're disposable, one-time use. This is the brand. I'm on my mobile just because I'm having technical difficulties. After putting your hand sanitizer on and your gloves, I take one out. I give it to everyone. The reason why I'm doing that, I think like a few people said before me, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. I think a big part of our profession and society is uncertain right now. And people look for certainty in some respects. And things are starting to open. And I want people to feel like if, seeing a house, I feel safer at the end of the day taking these measures than going to Farm Boy for my groceries. And in the last week or 10 days, I've gotten really good feedback. People respect it. Yes, it's annoying. Yes, it gets hot. Yes, it's nice if there's air conditioning, especially in the next few months to go, because you're breathing. But you know what? You take the time to have a 5 to 7, 10-minute conversation outside, catch up. How's life? How are the kids? You freaking out? I'm freaking out too. I had showings at 7:30 this this a few days ago just to accommodate this young family who wanted to see this house. And I put this box on the hood of my Jeep and I was like, let's go, you know? And we went through the house and we were having those normal exchanges and dialogues that we would have in a normal setting, right? Oh my gosh, is this room big enough? You know, what do you think is going to happen? Number of offers, blah, blah, blah. And the focus became on the house, okay? I don't know how this virus is spreading. I'm not a scientist, but my objective is to make people feel comfortable at the end of the day. And I think we are assisting people shop for one of the most basic needs in terms of shelter. And one of those other basic fundamental needs is people's needs for safety. And I don't want people to not buy a house because they don't feel safe, you know?
Yeah,
and
that's great. I think that your personal perspective on safety is, is very important. And I have a question here. Do you inform your clients, do you inform showing agents that your clients of the house they are visiting is a first-line worker?
I haven't. So I'm happy to have the conversation now because this example, they are sellers, and they're moving outside of the city.
Yep.
And I'm open to suggestion. I've had very open discourse and intelligent conversations with my clients to figure out, okay, what makes sense to you? And this guy in particular, he's a doctor. He puts ventilators down people's throats. So I'm like, what do you think? You tell me, like I'll do whatever you feel comfortable. This is your house. This is your kids. This is, I'm just
are you notifying in your realtor remarks or as people book showings that your seller is a frontline worker?
This property is not listed. I have not had any showings. However, in the last 24 hours, this was a very fast turnaround. So it was like all systems go to help this young family kind of transition life. So I've had 2 stagers, 2 landscapers working outside front yard, backyard, 2 pictures, videographer people, home inspector, and everyone came in and did the same process going in and out of the house. And he was comfortable with that.
Wonderful. Well, let's change gears a little bit now because we, in the essence of time here, we do want to talk. I mean, we know you're a wealth of knowledge with stats. So what can you share with us, Gab, on that side of things?
Okay, I'll ask you to put on the first graphs. In the first few weeks after watching a few things on Netflix, I decided to export all the data from MLS. I found out, I knew it was there, but didn't really kind of play with it until I had time, which is now. I have a chart that shows you the average sale price in Ottawa for the last 40 years, okay? Which is very interesting to lay out for obviously yourselves, but also most importantly for your clients to show them, not tell them. This is a number on the right, a number of new listings in Ottawa, but for the last 5 years. So April, I mean, I'm sure you guys all know, down 50, 60%, all that stuff. The Ottawa real estate market, I think Ottawa is different in terms of what the market is. I think one thing to pay attention to is that it's a localized, the impacts of COVID-19 are extremely localized, okay? So 40-50% of people work in high tech and government, and I don't think we'll have any issues or will not notice as much income loss as other parts of the country. New listings for both condominium and residential are breaking down per week between January all the way till now. So I will share them with whoever wants them, whoever attended the meeting for you guys to look at. Of course, try to understand and advise your clients. Number of unit sales, basically the Coles notes, unit sales and listings are down by the same amount. That doesn't really bother me. Sale prices have been a little bit volatile.
Hang on one sec, Nick. You're a little ahead of the stats, so that's great. So on this page that's up there right now, we're just taking a look at new listings. Okay, wonderful. So on the left-hand side of the screen is the number of new listings. That's for residential homes, and on the right is condominiums. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So what did we see? COVID kind of started. Let's call it the second, third week of March. So the end of March, April, May. What can you tell us about what we're looking at there?
Well, the market was trending similarly to 2019, but there was significantly less inventory this year than 2019. And therefore, that's why we saw the 20% price appreciation in the last, in January, February coming into this. I don't even know what to think of if we didn't have this pandemic, where the average sale price would be in terms of increase. Like, it was an unsustainable market for everybody involved, except if you're selling, of course. And now it's kind of tempered off. I think people are waiting to see, well, one, there's the marketplace in terms of the Ottawa real estate industry, 60% smaller than what it would be normally at this time, right? So I think, you know, as Nick and you, Bill, have alluded to it, there's been a lot of eyes on the internet, all of the corporate websites, all of the, you know, I'm sure Realtor.ca, Ottawa Real Estate Board. I don't know their stats on the click rates and all that stuff, but I'm sure they're significantly higher than what they were 2 months ago and maybe even last year. And I'm feeling, my intuition, kind of anecdotal experiences being in the trenches, is that people will want to move for a number of different reasons in the next few weeks, months, and who knows if there's going to be a second wave, you know? The market in Quebec, everybody was closed. You cannot meet anyone, you know? I think we all suffered the consequences of the financial impacts, some more than others, in the last, especially in March and April, you know? And we can't make any money if the market is shut down because there's a huge outbreak of COVID in Ottawa.
But these are our numbers. These are our
numbers.
These are our
Ottawa
numbers.
Real Estate Board
showing us that things are happening here.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's kind of showing us that, yes, there might be 55% fewer listings, but 55% of the buyer population took themselves out of the market as well because they're not comfortable working in this market. So that's why we're seeing, I think on your next slide, it kind of shows us.
Yeah, they're kind of maybe interesting, and people can look at it afterwards. But the trajectory of the lines for number of new listings, and now you're at number of total sales and average sell price, they're kind of the same. They're consistent, but they are trending upwards. The lines are starting to converge. We are starting to catch up to 2019 levels in terms of the number of new listings on a weekly basis. So I exported all the data. I put in all in a spreadsheet. I put in a filter for list date, or I pulled the certain columns that I wanted, one of which was the list date or contract date or whatever it was. And then I entered the specific date ranges from my calendar on a week by week basis. So these are number of new listings all across Ottawa Real Estate Board, not localized to any suburb or area.
So again, so what we're looking at here, if we go right to the very bottom of the your this page, May week 2 of May, we are looking at 2020 average sale price is a little higher, about 2.5% higher than in 2019 for residential, and even higher than that in condominium.
That's right. I found it really interesting to see the average sale price. Like, if you look at the column in 2020 and just go, so week 1, 2, 3, 4, the prices are going up. Wow, January week 4, the prices are up 20%. And then there's some volatility, right? Like, there's the less data points that you have within sample size, the more volatile it is. And if you remove a lot of high-end properties from the market, they can swing a lot faster. So I think that's the one thing to kind of keep in mind. But then you go, February week 1, 443 average, February week 2, 508. And then, if we kind of make our way to kind of week 2 of March, we're at 542,000. And I think the essential services, the list that we made to say we're essential was, I think March 15th, 16th, 17th. Yeah. And then you can kind of see the sale price. So the interesting part is that the average sale price in March, the second week, was 542. And now the average sale price of all properties that sold in the second week of May was 456. And like you said, is still 2% higher than last year. And
understanding, of course, the statistics, it could be that more $400,000 properties are selling and your $1 million properties are not on the market or not selling right now, which is affecting our average price. What about the number of deals done that, either at list or over? You got a graph on that as well?
Yeah, I think it's the next one. That's right. Yeah. So one thing that I've noticed anecdotally just in the last few weeks is, and myself included, not to kind of, I'm pricing things more in line with what I think they were worth pre-pandemic. There's no pandemic discounting, Am I listing it intentionally low to get 10, 15, 20, 30 offers? No. Do I stick my neck out there and say, answer the question directly to the homeowner, what's it worth? I stick my neck out a little bit more and list at the top end of the range, you know, because the other thing from a consumer standpoint is people are not comfortable unless you have a very elaborate conversation on letting, like, can you imagine putting your house on the market and letting 20, 30, 40, 50 people through your house? That's like number one concern over anything, right? So now I'm finding there's a lot more deals that are being done off market. Hey, Bill, I have a buyer for this. Hey, I have nervous old sellers for this. Perfect. Let's, you know, we'll make it happen kind of thing. Right. So I think there's a number of properties, like this is just MLS data, right? So I think there's a few more deals outside of this data set that have been happening. And generally the big trend in terms of the charts is that, and I'm looking at residential there, but so on the second week of February, you know, properties were selling 102, 103, 104% of asking. And now in the second week of May, you know, we're under 100%. And that, to me, I don't want to blow things out of proportion, but I think that's just more real estate agent pricing things at market value, not 2019 prices, just January, February, and March prices. So
okay, and again, you mentioned these are board stats, but you package them nicely, you know, so you don't mind sharing these with the membership.
Absolutely. My intention is, I think, this helps me do my job better, and I think consumers want to know this information, and I find I've had better success showing people than telling them. You know, I use the same kind of approach when it comes to pricing properties, outcome. I don't come in with a set agenda. You know, I'm just I read and react. I go see a property and never look at the MLS listing. I just look at what I see and describe it to my clients.
This kind of information in your presentation, you're able to show your sellers that must sell. When they're on the market, they must sell. But listen, it's not dire need out there. It's not that, you know, prices have dropped 15%, and we are seeing a substantial number of homes going on the market and still attracting multiple offers and selling for over list price. I mean, that's what this graph is showing us.
Correct.
Fantastic.
And I think the marketplace, just to kind of wrap it up, the marketplace is 60% smaller on MLS anyways, but it's still a seller's market across the board, anywhere across the city. If you look at the months of inventory, you know, a balanced market is 4 to 6 months. We were coming into this at 1 month of inventory, okay? I started 7 years ago in August. I think it was a balanced market. The condos were a bit more of a buyer's market. Residential's always been kind of stable. And then we've been steady decline literally for the last 5 years. And I think that definitely is illustrated by the number of new listings coming on the market in the last 5 years, which is on the first slide. But have a read. If anybody has any questions, send me an email. I'm happy to.
Okay, great, Gab. Well, thanks, because we will share those with everybody. So I do appreciate it. We're going to change gears a little bit now and open up the Q&A, you know, to some of the questions that we received before today, as well as those who have had a question pop up, you know, as presentation has been given. I do want to, for those of you who may have joined us a little later, just go over a disclaimer before we carry on. The unique circumstances that we are living on means this is unprecedented legal territory. In this webinar, there will be a discussion about legal issues that have been encountered during the pandemic. Anything that is said during the presentation that might be interpreted as legal advice should not be relied on, and each participant should obtain their own independent legal advice. OREB, the panelist, and the YPN committee take no responsibility for any of the actions, losses, or damages that result from any action taken by participants as a result of this discussion. That's the last time you'll hear that from me today, but hopefully that's very clear with everybody. Before we get right into the questions, I'd like just to kind of go down, we'll start with Nick, and just tell us, you mentioned the word team. So tell us a little bit about the makeup of your business, just so we have an idea of the size of your team, kind of the roles of people, and the mix of your business. Is it mainly listings, mainly buyers? We'll ask each of you that, but Nick, if you don't mind sharing that with us first, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, so you said the question was the makeup of the team and then just kind of the shape of my business. Yeah. So my team there's 3 of us. There's Stephanie Ross, who I think is probably on the call here, Katie Landry, who's my buyer specialist, and me. So it's just the 3 of us. We're at the Pretoria office downtown, and it's about 50% listings and buyers. Okay, at the moment. It's much more buyer focused this year, because literally I've been telling some of the people that want to list, say, hey, just if you don't need to, hold tight. Here's the reasons why you might want to hold tight. And they're starting to come onto the market now. But yeah, that's the shape of it. And the way it runs is that Katie deals with as many buyers as possible. I'm trying to generate leads, and Steph is supporting that by making sure she's taking as much stuff off my plate as she can.
Mike?
So it's myself and Eric.
Mike, I think you have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
You're a little.
Okay, perfect.
Does that work? Perfect.
Yep.
Sorry, the headset. So it's myself and Erica. So Erica primarily works with our residential side, either leasing or buyers as well. And she also has an opportunity to list properties as well from a residential standpoint. I'd say our business makeup would be about, if we had to average over the course of the year, 70-30 in favor of residential, 30% commercial. And interesting, our commercial business is 100% referral from agents, from outside the brokerage and inside the brokerage. And I partner with that as other agents. So interesting with my business is, I guess looked at a few years ago, as I saw that form, one of Orab's, 450, Maria's 455 forms we have, was the co-broke. And I realized that you're able to co-broke with other brokerages as long as your brokerage is okay with it.
Yep.
So I saw an opportunity there to say, well, really, if it's the client who's happy, so for commercial, I often co-broke with outside brokerages.
Fantastic. Okay,
right? And there's no reason not to. I mean, as long as the client's happy, the form's actually one of the most succinct, clear ones I've ever seen. From a residential standpoint, I've been registered since 2011, and I would say majority of my business, 85% is referral based. And I use a similar approach to Nick, where it's a spokes thing. I tell my clients I use the donut effect. And I tell people that I don't talk about real estate. I talk about everything surrounding it. So I am their yellow pages and their 401. You call me, one phone call and I'll take care of it. For my team, like I said, so it's Erica. She does, she's my buffer with the office for admin because they don't want me involved in the paperwork. And then from the perspective of marketing, and that is, I'm very particular about single source people. So I've got our cleaners, our staging team, and that is I go to them and I'm very specific about making sure they're taken care of and contracted. So my big thing is I pay all my invoices, my contract within 24 hours.
You got a good service provider as part of your team, as well as
right. And the reason I do that is, sorry, I just want to mention quickly. The reason I do that is when crap hits the fan, they take my call. So right. it allows me to do that.
Right. And Gab, what about the mix of your business and?
Yeah, so I have been licensed for 7 years. I took on a great office manager who's now licensed and is my right-hand woman, Quinn. And I've taken on another really exciting buyer's agent, Marie-Hélène, who started with me in January. So I tried to do everything by myself. It doesn't work. I'm just going to do the stuff that I like doing. So.
Wonderful. Okay, so you've all got a little bit of admin support, a little bit of another agent on your team that's going to help you with some of the excess buyer business that you've got. Let's take a look. Let's get right into some, business kind of stuff that's happening right now. Virtual open houses is a big question. You do them? Have you had success with them? Any recommendations on how people, host their virtual open houses? Anyway, Nick, you can just go ahead and start with Nick.
Sure. I haven't had to host any yet. My listings have been, I've been keeping them sidelined at the moment, but I've certainly been to a number of them, and I've done a lot of Zoom showings. I have been telling clients that unless they are ready to put in an unconditional offer and we're setting up for that, we're not going to see the house in person together. So I'll be going on my own. We will be making sure I won't show properties that have tenants in them because I don't feel that that's fair to the tenants. And I go and it's one part, it's one part Blair Witch Project and one part House Hunters International. I go through the house with my mask and
Right.
and stuff like that. But it's I generally speaking, as long as I have the all clear from the listing agent, I have it on record so that we can refer to it later, or so that I can do it asynchronously. And did you say it was a question? What did you say is going well with what you see?
Well, just, if you were hosting, so that's more of how you're showing a home virtually to a client, but you actually haven't had virtual open house that you've done.
Yeah.
That was the question that came in, is who's doing virtual open houses and what's going well or what's not working.
Open houses, I just like seeing when you have a bunch of people that are able to come on the call and just answer questions, kind of like right here, as if Mike were to pick up his phone or like his laptop and walk around the house right now. It's such a useful thing to just be able to answer questions and hear other people's questions that are on the call.
Yeah, great. And Gab, yourself, are you doing anything?
I've had one listing. I have 3 coming up this week. I have not attended or done a Facebook open house thing, but I figured out, I think, the right formats for it to work. I took a few weeks to just kind of watch what people were doing. Yeah. I will go Facebook Live maybe this afternoon or tomorrow, depending on with Loom. Loom is a great plugin. I've been playing around with it a little bit. Yeah. It shows you in the corner, and then you can share your screen. So, I could be like, okay, Street View, this is the property. This is what we're taking for, PPE measures. Look at the aerial. Okay, here's a picture of the backyard. Maybe go through a comparable sales or two, go through the pictures, go through the marketing. And I like honestly, I've not been very active, even though of my age, on social media since I've started in real estate. It's only now in the last month or two, or in the last, anyways. But I enjoy interacting with the consumers. The consumers at the end of the day, they are right. The consumers, whatever the consumer says, I will cater to them, and I think my concern is that we pay attention to what the public has to say. Yeah.
What about you, Mike? Are you doing open houses as part of your business?
We've got one coming up. Haven't done them. I will say is, and I've been in this process, is I see a lot of agents talking, they're paralyzed to do it the right way. And to quote a guy who actually doesn't like real estate is Gary V. He says, just do it. Just do it to get the content out there. I will say a peer of all of ours who's been fantastic at getting his message out there and having consistency is Sean Tassay. Sean's got a fantastic online presence, and the transition to virtual open houses has been seamless with his brand. Right, and it's a fantastic resource. I'll be doing one coming up, and I'll be looking at some of my peers to see what they've been doing.
Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of experience. I haven't done open houses either virtually. But what are your thoughts? The other question to do with open houses, and then we'll move on, is will we ever do open houses again?
So wow. The topic of open houses is always one people like to get me on. So the open house is to sell the house. I'm sorry, that's the job of the open house. You have a contract, you're under agency. Yes, you can pick up clients in the part of the business. There's the whole methodology and stats on it. What I find the concept of virtual open houses, it goes back to quality. It goes back to the quality of the content. We're streamlining our business. If has anyone here ever ran their cost per hour, what your billable hour is? How many worked in the restaurant business? You ran your cost per hour as a manager or server, it was like $1.75 because you put these hours in, and agents are always like, well, I did my open house. No, you're not paid by the hour. Where's your quality of your content? So I think we might get to there, but I'll be honest, I do a lot of out-of-town clients, and I've been using 3D tours for years. What we're doing now is I've done multiple showings without ever having set foot in the house before this COVID thing. Okay. So I think we might do them, but I think it's going to be strategic.
Right. Nick or Gab, anything to add to open houses?
As few as possible.
Okay. The future?
I personally think, like, if you're asking me right now, put me on the spot, will there ever be an open house again? I think so. People are lining out outside of restaurants and grocery stores. People are taking appropriate measures. There's tape on the ground. There's a mask. There's gloves. This thing's not gonna last forever, I think. Okay. Well, hopefully not. Yeah.
Nick?
On open houses, I think that there's a lot of agents who are really excited to get back to what they feel is normal, right? And one of those things is open houses. This is the way that they've done it. I think the people who are going to have an advantage going forward are the people who who adapted well to these virtual open houses. And that doesn't mean that open houses in the traditional sense disappear, but I think the people who can leverage these new technologies well and get a better what was dollar cost per hour, who can get a better return on that are going to win going forward.
I think that's a great point, that people feel that open houses has been part of our Sunday for 30 years for some of us. You know, so
yeah, I think.
But for me, they've been such a boring part of my Sunday.
Okay, let's move on from that. Although it was a popular question, it sounds like, it's not necessarily something that we all see that we need in our business, as Mike mentioned. But let's move on. What about new agents? You've all mentioned you either brought on an agent recently or you've got an agent on your team. I mean, what advice would you have for any new agents? Kind of just maybe somebody just got licensed in January or February, or was in the licensing process. What's your advice to them today on how they could get their business started? Yeah.
I would say go in guns a-blazing. I think there will be significantly new people getting into the business. So the competition of newer agents within your circle or sphere will be less than what it would have been if there would not have been a pandemic. I would say lean on, find people that you respect their business, from your own research. Joining it, I think you have to learn the business a little bit. And there's, for anybody who, there's a reality check that comes from the licensing process to the in the trenches kind of selling of real estate. And it comes with largely that you have to find clients. So I think there will be some people, and it'll just depend on that person's ability to be able to kind of attract business. And obviously, but I think social media and Facebook and being out there, the new wave of new agents will be out there for sure on social media.
Mainly promoting themselves through social media. Yeah. Mike, anything on that?
I think Mike, you go for it.
So for those who don't know me, I'm pretty blunt at times. So frankly, this is a perfect, fantastic time to get into real estate. Because here's the thing. 100%. And I say this, we're in a quite protected market. We're a coal mining town, right? We're one industry, 3 levels of it, one industry. It all supports that, right? At some degree. That's why we have some insulation to it. But this creates an opportunity to look at your business. So if you're a new agent, you weren't predispositioned to enjoying the good times and the okay times. And secondly, let's be honest, people don't need realtors. We're not even part of the transaction. On page 5, it's all paperwork. If we got hit by a bus, God forbid, that deal's still going to close. Only in England do they require estate agents. So here's the thing. If you bring value, your clients will hire you. What better time than they go, I don't know where to find a landscaper. I don't know where to find gloves. You become the person they go to get information, to get resources. If you look at back in the day, I grew up in a very, very small town of like 12,000 people that had that counts like dogs, cats, and goldfish in the population. The top realtors were the ones who sat at Tim Hortons and everybody went to them. I need a mechanic. I need a roofer. I need a tire. Become your sphere's go-to and your business will come. Like Nick's point, right? Become the referral of every other business. They'll come to you for real estate. This is a perfect time to get into real estate.
Nick, anything to add to that?
Sure. So Russ Perkins over at our brokerage, one of the managers, he said 2 things when I started that I still remember very much that have totally held true. Number 1 is that there are certain people in the office so if you're a new agent, there are certain people in the office who might not always have the time for you, but if they talk, just shut up and listen. So like in our brokerage, that's Pat Morris, that's Rob Marlin, like those type of people. And the great thing is that they give generously. They don't see you as competition. They don't always have a lot of time to like sit and answer all your questions, but when they give you advice, it's from the heart. The second one is whatever system you choose, whether you choose to be a disciple of one of the fairies, like Mike or Tom, or Brian Buffini, or one of the like Gary Keller, whatever you do, just take that system. If you put your head down and you do it, you will be okay. You will be fine. Just do that thing. Don't jump around from approach to approach. And then once you've got some momentum, iterate on that.
Okay, so I mean, there's lots of systems and a lot of ways to do your business that work. You just got to find a way, stick to the way that resonates best with you.
Yeah.
What were some of your, again, just in the last, we've still got about 10 or 15 minutes here, but, when did you realize, in this last, kind of, what is it, almost 12 weeks now, 10, 12-week period that, how have you changed? In other words, are you still doing business today the same way you did the first 2 weeks, or did it take you a couple of weeks to get into the way you're doing business there? Or what was it that allowed you to realize that you have to pivot, to use that popular word that's out there right now? Gab?
My whole life has changed like everybody else. My marketing's all changed. My tone has changed. My process has changed. It feels like my head's working overdrive because I'm like, okay, pump, gloves, mask, okay, don't touch your face. If I touch my face, they'll touch your face. And so the whole thing has been very, it's a lot of critical thinking. You're kind of, there's no steady Eddie, old as, normal. Like, we're not going back to life the way it was, I don't think, personally. Things will change and either adapt and overcome, or kind of see what happens. I 100% agree with what Mike said about Gary V. I love Gary V. He just says, like, fuck it, just go do something. Like, just try something, figure it out, learn by making mistakes. And I think we can rely on our peers or colleagues, a platform like this, to kind of figure out as a unit what works best in terms of servicing the residents of the Ottawa area.
Yeah.
So the question is,
did you go through a phase? I mean,
right.
I found myself, the first couple of weeks was kind of confusing, and then decided, okay, this is the way it's going to be for a while. Better get on to some things, So what about yourself?
There were a couple of weeks for sure where I was having, like, there were different push and pull from our clients. Some of them who really wanted to, really had a different attitude than I did or my team did, like comfort level wise and going out there. We had a client right in the start of lockdown who wanted to drive up and from Toronto and do a house tour. And we just said no. And we actually thought we lost them for a little bit. And then they'd gone to some other realtor, and we're going to have to say, hey, you have a buyer up with us. But they came back and they bought a house sight unseen. They have not been up to see this house yet. Like, in the end, they came back a little bit apologetically, and they said, hey, we were just sort of stressed about the whole thing. I said, it's okay. We were too. And then there was navigating my team that my team is probably, like, we're all pretty cautious about how we're showing homes and things like that. But both of my team members were probably a step more than I was. And so there was some stress there about what we were okay doing with the team. Katie kind of had benched herself for a little bit at the start and said, hey, like, I'm just not comfortable doing showings. And I had to be okay saying, hey, that's okay. If you're benched, we're going to have to deal with that. Right. And then as we adapted to say, okay, so how's our team as a brand going to put our messaging out there? And then how's that align with our clients, like that avatar that we had? Then it started to become more clear about how we were going to do things as going forward. We just kept in mind, like, what is our client thinking? Does that match with what we're about? And if we are, then we can cautiously open up what we're doing.
Mike, what about the last 10 weeks for you? I mean, and what kind of evolution have you gone through?
So this is interesting. For those of you on social media with me, I do share, but I share in a controlled way. So my background is PR, so I'm very controlled in my messaging. So to be completely honest, it goes back actually last August for me. I had a forced OHIP vacation. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital and found out I have an autoimmune disease. Fantastic. So I'm actually, in theory, supposed to be sitting in a room by myself, separate bathroom, behind a shield, and all this BS. I'm saying it's BS because I can't get a clear answer from my doctors. So in saying that is I kind of push it back on my team and say, look, if you're not feeling safe, I'm not feeling safe. So you take care of yourself. So I've actually only been to one property. It was last Saturday. He's got about 3.5 acres. He stood more than 6 feet away. And he opened the door to the house. I went in. He was outside. Some guy was on the roof, which is fine. It was well over 6 feet. That's my first in-person interaction. Right. And to be honest, I'm not sure as this goes forward. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I have older parents. I have a wife. And I'm also concerned about Eric on my team and my peers. I'm concerned about you, Bill, and Gabe, and Curtis, and Nick, because we can be safe, but it can also, we're not sure where this is going to go. So for me personally, I've only been to Tim Hortons drive-thrus. And for those who also know me, I'm not into nature or any physical activity. I've been on more stupid walks in my neighborhood with my dog and physical activity than I've done in my entire life. Like Gabe says, we don't know where it's going to go. I'm just kind of riding it out and deferring to where people on my team are comfortable. If they say no, frankly, that's my problem.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for them, and I'll deal with it. If they say no, we'll run with it.
Okay, great. Nick, you brought up a great point I want to explore a little bit more, maybe with Gab and Mike, as well as you, Nick, can chime in. And you had a client who wasn't willing to do business the way you thought business should be done in today's environment. How did you, you gave us a little bit on how you dealt with it, but it was kind of, oh, we thought we lost him, but he came back, so but how would you deal with that today if you find a client, either a seller or a buyer, that just isn't willing to do business in today's environment the way you feel you want to deliver your business?
So the one I was talking about was this young couple from Toronto. I met them through because of Reddit, actually, where I'd answered some questions on there, and they ended up with us. They were super enthused. They were gung ho, good to go. Katie and I took them out for probably 8 showings, like early March or late February. I can't remember. And then mid-March, they wanted to go for a whole bunch. And like I said, we thought we lost them because they weren't responding to emails. And then it just turns out that they had their own stuff to deal with in Toronto, and they were seeing how the climate was changing in Toronto. And that's when they came back to us and said, hey, like, we were maybe a little off base. We're really sorry that we were kind of snippy with you for not agreeing to go do a house showing tour with us. But there's another client who's a longtime friend of mine that I knew from a previous job, actually, years ago. And I had to fire her. She lives in Quebec, and she wanted to come. She would sneak across the bridge past the blockade. She would park, she would walk across the blockade, and then take an Uber to go see neighborhoods she liked. And she was angry that I wouldn't take her to see places in person. And she was pregnant. And I just said, that's it. Like, you're not making me comfortable, and you're not making me comfortable serving you. I'm sorry, like, this isn't going to work out. And because we're longtime friends, my words were a little bit more blunt than that. But in most circumstances, I probably would have referred her. And one of the things that we use one of the things that our team has used, I don't know if you guys, if anybody's on the webinar saying they understand reference to like a Star Trek red shirt, like the disposable security guys. We have a colleague at the office, also Nick, who I've told him he's our disposable red shirt because he has no family in town. He's he's kind of isolated. He's willing to go do showings sometimes with people who I'm not going to go take out.
Yeah, have you had to either turn down a buyer or seller, or just?
Yeah, a number of times. I think this whole pandemic has taught me that it's a personal choice. There's no right or wrong reasons. Everyone's responsible to make their own decisions, and draw that line in the sand, saying, I feel comfortable doing this, I feel comfortable doing that. It's not for me to judge. If someone's doing something that is not comfortable for me, I'll take my appropriate actions. And I think it's easier to fire a client when you have a lot of clients, and then it kind of, you get into the dark hole a little bit of like spending a lot of energy, and negative clients or people that are very confrontational, or you're not just jiving with,
Amen.
Yeah, they just, they drain so much out of you, and people need good advice to handle their real estate right now. And I don't have time or effort, really, frankly, for anybody that doesn't want to work with me, so yeah.
Okay, Mike, last 60 seconds, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, if they don't like me, there's 3,200 other realtors they could pick from.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not risking myself or my brand or my clients. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we have to remember that, again, that we were deemed an essential service, but it's not business as usual. We want to be able to demonstrate, that we have put certain practices in place, that respect the advice we're getting from Ottawa Health, as well as our membership with OREB and our RICO and our and CREA. So making sure that we do our business in a responsible way. I want to thank the three of you, for joining us today. And we had between at certain times we had between 100 and 220 people online. So hopefully they've all picked up an idea or two that's going to help them with your business in this uncertain time. So thanks very much to each of you. And on behalf of the YPN, we'll see you in the marketplace.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Stay safe.
Bye.